Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mr. Menopause Show. My name is Tafiq Akhir, and I am your host today. And I am here with a very special guest, and she's going to be sharing her menopause story. Her name is Faye Reid, and I want to welcome you all to the Mr. Menopause Show. Hey, Faye, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on here. Such an important subject. I'm excited.
Yes, absolutely. You know, in our pre-conversation, I was so excited during our pre-conversation, and usually my pre-conversations about interviews are like 10 minutes. I think we spoke for like 30 minutes, and afterwards I'm like, we should use this for the recording. But then after I went through it, I'm like, we did no intro, we did no outro, we didn't really, have anything set. Our backgrounds were all funky. So I'm like, let's do it again and do it the professional way so that the viewing audience can get the best of both of us. So thank you for coming back and doing this discussion again. So I appreciate that.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
So first and foremost, the show is all about your menopause story. So let's start there. So tell us a little bit about your menopause journey, and we can just kick it off.
So my journey as such is I was 45. I just started a brand new job. My trade as such is EAPA, which translates to personal assistant, supporting CEOs, CFOs. I'm like their secretary. And it was a really good job, and I was really excited to start. And it was my first week there. I was sat in the office. And I have to say, we were just about to move offices. So I was sat on the top floor of this building. We'd run out of space. I was sat with a tech team, which was like 98% men, and the CEO who I was supporting. And it was that first week I had a hot flush. And it took me completely by surprise because I had no idea what it was. I just felt this massive heat in my body. And I was like, and I actually looked around the room. This is to say, did no one else feel that? Did anybody else feel it? No, nobody else did. It was just me. And again, I kind of ignored it, which is another typical thing that us women do. We don't address something that is bothering us. So after ignoring it for a few more times, it was the light bulb moment. And I realized I was having a hot flush. And it made me giggle. I internally laughed because I think society now is, I was 45 and I was like, well, I'm not old. What do you mean I'm having a hot flush? Somebody's having a joke on me. I just laughed. Mm-hmm. And for that first year, I'm very much holistic, natural remedies. For that first year, I took vitamins. I went to a vitamin store and just got some magnesium initially, started looking into it a little bit, didn't have a clue about the menopause, no idea what it was, what it entailed and such forth. And I kind of
ask you really quickly, so when you were having the hot flashes, did you realize at that point that it was menopause?
After a few of the hot flashes.
Gotcha.
It took a few. Initially, I was like, I don't know what that is. And then it happened a few more times. I kept thinking, what is that? And then I don't know. It was just that light bulb moment where I just went, oh my God, I'm having hot flushes. What's going on here? And I was fine for the first year or so. I just kind of ambled along. I live in the UK. My commute meant I had to take the underground, which if you've ever been to the UK, is closed in, is hot. You ain't pressing a button to get off when you want. You getting off when the train stops.
Right.
So it was all crammed in like sardines. And I quickly realized, probably about 2 months in, I could no longer take the underground to commute to work.
Wow.
And that was because I was so hemmed in. Mm-hmm. I could feel the hot flush coming. I started to panic because I could feel it coming. I knew I was going to start sweating, and there was nothing I can do. And you're hemmed in, and my little arm is going up, trying to myself with a tissue. I mean, I'm laughing now. It wasn't funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yes.
It really wasn't. So I changed my route to work, and I took a longer journey, which took me about an hour and a half each way. But it was worth it because it was bearable. So that's kind of really the only adjustment I did in that first year. Mm-hmm. But roll on the second year, and so many things collided. My mum was diagnosed with terminal cancer for the second time. diagnosed with cancer for the second time, but this time it was terminal. My job, supporting a CEO, the business was just about to sell. So then my world just imploded. The stress just tipped my menopause off the cliff.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to get night and day sweats, insomnia, severe anxiety I developed. I wasn't sleeping, my bones were aching, and I was just on the floor. I was having anxiety muddled with depression, and it was just awful.
Yeah.
And
A lot of people don't realize that estrogen actually has an effect on your neurotransmitters in your brain that affect anxiety and depression. So when you compound that with external things that add to anxiety and depression, it's like it's really extreme. In fact, there are a lot of women that actually get misdiagnosed with depression because number one, doctors don't really know a lot about menopause, so they assume that that's what it is, and then so you have to take these medications, and then it's not actually really helping what's going on because there's other things going on. Yeah, like, I've heard so many of these stories. Yes, please.
All of that. And it is interesting that that is happening in the US as well, because in the UK, that's the one prominent story of women going to their doctors and not getting the help that they need because the doctor's going, oh, you're depressed, here's some antidepressants. Now, in my case, I was so low. I have to add, I was super close to my mum. She's now passed away, but my mum had me when she was 17. So we were very, very close. I was her firstborn, and it was a devastating diagnosis for me that I was going to lose her. So I actually started to see a therapist before she passed away because my anxiety was so bad, and I knew I was in a bad way. And my friend said, you need to talk to somebody. So I started to see a therapist, and within the first month of seeing that therapist, she said, I'd like you to go and see your doctor and just explain everything to them. She could see. And I was one of the lucky ones. I shouldn't have to say I'm the lucky ones, but I went in, saw my doctor, cried for the first 5 minutes, just sat in her chair and cried. Well, she passed me, it's such a vivid memory. She passed me tissues and said, when you're ready. When you're ready. When I explained everything to her, and I said, I think I'm going through the menopause, but I've also got this on going, that on. And she went, sounds like you are going through the menopause. Let's do some blood tests to see where your hormone levels are. She goes, but in the meantime, here's some help. And she gave me HRT off the bat straight away. So, and I was very lucky in that, one, I'm normally natural and holistic, but on this occasion, I was so in need of help, I took it. And I didn't question it. I was like, I'm taking it. That, it didn't help me initially. I had to try different variations, different tablets and such forth. But to this day, I will say it's one of the best decisions I ever took, taking it. And that is for me, because I know there's a lot of questions women are asking, women don't want to take it, and definitely from cultural backgrounds, there's so much stigma around it. But I always say, make an informed decision. Don't just go by hearsay, what you hear other people muttering or old folks' tales. It was the best decision I could ever. It changed my life. It absolutely changed my life.
And you know what's interesting, because that was actually what I was going to ask you. It's like what your thought was, because of the stigmas that you hear about it, and that story that is so, number one, out of dated, and it was incorrect when it came out years ago about HRT and all that stuff. I like that, again, that you shared that you had to go through some variations before you got that, because I know earlier you spoke, you said you were surprised about the US, being different. Well, actually, the US is so far behind the UK when it comes to menopause, like way behind. I actually had to get my certification from the UK because there was nothing here at the time. It's only like last year that things started being more spoken about in the mainstream, like Oprah did a special, Maria Shriver,
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, a lot of because the celebrities are coming out saying things, people are talking about it more. But the problem that I see personally, which is why I'm so passionate about my thing about awareness about menopause is that all of the conversations that are being had here in the US are all the same. So it's like every time someone comes on, they're repeating the same thing. So the ball's not moving. Right.
Yeah.
And I believe personally, and just from what I see, the research that I've done is that the reason the ball is not moving is because there's no awareness. There's no education about not only menopause,
100%.
but the impact that menopause has, right? Because I'm sure that like you said, it affected your work, right? It affected
life.
It affected your commute. I mean, like, think about
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? So it affects so much more. My slogan time and time again is that menopause is more than a woman's health issue. It's a woman's life issue. It impacts her mentally, physically, and emotionally. So that means it's going to affect her relationships.
Every strand.
And so what does that mean? It means that everyone that they come in contact with is going to be impacted by it as well. So they need to be educated about it. And that's what's really missing, especially here in the USA, is because people still aren't talking about it. Yeah, you know, it's still like this taboo thing. And it's like, it's so strange to me that, you know, like you said, like the US is so far behind with this, you know, and that we're trying to catch up. I know that there was a thing that you guys have where I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but 600 different companies signed something.
Yes, a
pledge that they would supply. So that's my goal for the US. My goal is to get 600 companies to say that they're going to, you know, provide menopause awareness support for their because it's, first of all, it's such an easy thing for them to do. I mean, it can be like an afternoon workshop and you're done, you know, getting your education, you know, about the awareness. From there, you get the support, like the resources and things like that, because you can't get support if you don't know what you're supporting, right?
Don't know what you're supporting. There's so much in what you've just said. Like firstly, when I started looking into the menopause, because I started looking online, I was like, Google's my best friend. And I was like, the only people I found were in the US. At the time, there were 1 or 2 Black women, like doctors that had written papers and stuff. But it was just images of little old white ladies wearing beige clothing. And I was like, that's not me. Mm-hmm. And also, going back to your point, like, I love that celebrities are talking about it, but that's not my life.
Yeah.
And I want somebody that I can relate to, someone that has gone through what I've gone through to educate me and raise the awareness. And like, when I first started looking into this, I was quite adamant. I wanted to find people like me, as in 1, people that look like me, Black women, but 2, people just lived an everyday life. Had to get up in the morning, go to work. I had an hour and a half commute. I wasn't able to go to Dr. Holistic in the middle of the afternoon on the other side of London. That wasn't going to happen for me. So I try and just be me and show how I've lived with this. And it hasn't been easy. Back to HRT, I was prescribed 1 tablet initially, completely ignorant. I thought, well, that's it. She's giving me a tablet. And I'm like, well, it's not really working. What am I meant to feel? I didn't know what to feel. So my doctor checked in with me again, and she increased the dose. And again, I just was like, yeah, I just didn't know. I just thought maybe it's the placebo effect. I'm just meant to be thingy. But then she changed the tablet again. She goes, let's try on a different tablet. And that's when I was like, oh, there's more than one. There's more than one. I was like, oh my God. So tried a different tablet. I was kind of ambling along on that. And then that tablet got discontinued. So she said to me, let's try you on some patches. So she tried me on 1 patch, and that didn't really work. And then she tried me on a different patch. And I was like, oh my God. It's that feeling of starting to feel a bit like myself and a little bit better. Not 100%, but better. And then fast forward, we're having to deal with Brexit in the UK, which is the most stupidest thing ever, but we won't bring that into the menopause conversation. But it has had an effect on medical supplies for us coming into the UK. And at the height of Brexit, I couldn't get hold of the patches that I was on. And I was distraught because it was the one thing that was kind of keeping me afloat.
Yeah.
And women will recognize when you start to go through the menopause, and if you find something that's helping, all of a sudden that's to kind of just been whipped away. You're like, what am I gonna do now? The worry and the fear started to set in. And it was from there, by that stage, I'd been doing a lot of research, and I'd spoken to a few other women, and I went back to my doctor and I said, I'd like to try the Mirena coil alongside estrogel. And she went, yeah, let's try it. And from friends and family, it's the best I've ever been in probably about 5 years.
Nice. That is so good to hear. And I love that you shared the story about the process that you had to go through the HRT, because another one of the things that I recall vividly from Oprah's special is that Oprah kept saying to the women, you know, when you get that first shot, it's going to change your life. It's going to change your life. And I kept saying, no, for some women, it might change their life, but other women are going to have to do a whole bunch of different variations until they find what works for them.
For them.
Exactly.
100%. 100%.
So I myself am going through andropause, which is the male version of menopause, and I'm on TRT, which is male version of HRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy. And the same thing, I had to start with a gel first. It worked a little bit, then it stopped working. And then they wanted to do injections, and I hate needles. And then they were like, I was going to have to give the injection to myself. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. But then my symptoms and everything got so bad. Another thing a lot of people don't realize is that andropause symptoms and menopause symptoms are almost identical.
Are they?
As far as like the most common, like the top 7 most common symptoms that women experience: the hot flashes, mood swings, belly fat, anxiety, depression, that stuff. Men get it as well. Those are the top, the same top 5 that women get are the same top 5 that men get. Of course, women have 2 hormones that are working, progesterone and estrogen.
Yes.
Men only have 1. So the symptoms are not going to be like as intense, like for me, like my hot flash. Like for me, what I also acquired with my andropause was, along with that, I also would get hives that were triggered by body heat. So for me, when I would have a hot flash, I would break out into welts and just be itching all over. So for me, the itching was so bad that the hot flashes were nothing for me. Like, to me, it was like hot flash. I'm like, I just want to stop itching. Like, right. So I always tell people, I know what a hot flash feels like, but I don't really, because I didn't focus on that part. You know what I mean? But I could tell, like you said, you feel this like heat starting inside of you. It starts.
Remember Bunsen burner when you was in college or school, like in the chemistry class, and it's the thing where you turn it on and the flame.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I never even thought about it like that. I had this one lady actually say that it was similar, and this was before I had my first hot flash. She's like, if you never had one, this is what it feels like. If you've ever taken a niacin tablet, and how that heat
rises.
And I'm like, you know what? Now that I've had one, I'm like, it's similar, but it's not the same. I'm like, it's similar to that because the heat is coming. Because when you take a niacin tablet, you know it's coming. You know that heat flushes, but with a regular hot flash, it's like it just comes out of like you said, out of nowhere. I can remember I just literally sat in my car and started driving, and I could feel the heat, and then I started feeling my arms, and I looked down and like I was just covered in welts. I'm like, I didn't even do anything. I just started driving. And so, and again, this was all at the beginning stages, so I wasn't really sure what was going on.
It was.
And because number one, andropause is not really, if you think women aren't talking to each other, you know men aren't talking. And so the last thing a man is going to be saying is, hey, buddy, is your testosterone low? Oh, yeah, I'm having ED right now. Men don't talk like that, right?
They're not going to do it.
Again, going back to that awareness we were talking about earlier, women aren't talking to each other. Men aren't talking to each other. Women don't think men would understand what they're going through. Men don't think women would understand what they're going to. But you're not talking to each other, so you don't realize that you got more in common than you
realize.
And I had a guy on my show, Gary Sandoval is his name. And I had him on because I wanted to see a man's perspective of his wife going through menopause. And in the middle of the interview, another bombshell. he was having hot flashes at the same time his wife was, had no clue what andropause was, didn't know it was a thing, but because he had other health problems, he thought it was just associated with that. Right. So he
Oh
was
my
going
God.
through this at the same time his wife was, but he was so focused on trying to figure out what was going on with her that
He didn't connect it. And he didn't know because
yeah,
the education's
exactly.
not there.
Exactly. And that's why awareness is so important. I get so many people saying to me, you're a man, what would you know? We don't want a man telling us what to do. And I'm like, that's not what my goal is. My goal is not to tell anyone what to do. My goal is to educate the people around you about what's happening to you so they can support you when you're going through the process.
100%. And I have to say, I started that new job and I had my first hot flush in that first week. I was in that job for five years, and I told no one in HR or the people team or anybody what I was going through. It was only one or two colleagues that eventually found out, and I told what I was going through. And I look back now and I think, that's mad. How can I have been in that job 5 years and I went through all of that
Alone.
and didn't tell them?
Yep, struggling alone. Yeah, exactly. And that's a big part of what my passion for menopause is because growing up, I saw my mother go through various health issues. But the one thing that I remember most looking back, like now that I've been starting to work in menopause, is I remember when she would have her hot flashes and she would get these severe headaches and how she would lock herself in her bedroom alone. And looking back, I'm like, she would just be suffering alone. Like my mom was suffering alone every time she would go through that, because we didn't talk about it. Even back then, it wasn't even, I had never heard the word menopause. I heard
my mom never mentioned
she's going through the change. That's what we heard. But I'm going through the change. So that's what we thought it was. And like I remember this one time in particular, me and my sister, we wanted to go into the bedroom to talk to my mom. And so we knocked on the door, and I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, which in the winter, there's horrible snowstorms. Yeah, cold. And so we opened the door, and at the time it was funny. Me and my sister thought it was funny. I was a teenager, and so, but my mom's laying in the bed in her bra and panties, sweating profusely. Her window is open and snow is blowing into her. And she's not getting any relief. Exactly. Like we walk in and there's like a winter storm in my mom's bedroom. And we're like, what? And me and my sister are like, what is going on? Right. But now looking back and knowing what I know now, I'm like, yeah, she had no support, none. And I think about all the women that I've coached over the years. One of the things that I kept realizing, I'm like, there are so many of the same things everything that the women were going through. I'm like, this is the same stuff my mom went through. And my mom passed away in 94. So think about how long ago that was. And women are struggling and suffering the same exact way today. There's been no progress. And that's what I mean by we have to move the conversation. And the only way to move the conversation is to actually make people aware of what menopause, number one, really is, because it's more than just about the vajayjay. Men are like, oh, that's a woman's thing. No, it's more than a woman's thing. And you need to listen, because it's going to affect you. It's going to affect your household. It's going to affect your job. It's going to affect your employees. It's going to affect everyone. And every woman over 40 will experience it to some degree. So that means every man 100%. Will experience it to some degree.
Right? I always say that. And I think, like, for me, if I talk to companies or I do a Q&A, I really, really try and stress, please, can I have a male present? And they're like, oh, males don't really want to talk about this. They said, look, one, they could be line managing staff. They could have female staff they have to manage. They should know about it. Two, a man could have a wife or partner at home who is really struggling, will have a knock-on effect on him. It could affect his performance at work. Three, you could have a young male still living at home, having a horrendous home life because his mum's going through it, causing problems in mum and dad's marriage and stuff. It could affect his performance at work. It's important that the conversation is opened up to everybody. And also, in terms of there is an average age where women go through this. We can't forget about medical menopause. Women that have hysterectomies or going through some kind of chemo, you have trans people who are transitioning. They will go through some kind of menopause depending on what hormones are being taken away and replaced. So I think it's a conversation that should just not be limited to the older generation as such. It spreads far and wide. And also, one thing I like to get across is because for the first 4 years of my perimenopause, and my indication was hot flushes, I had a period every single month, regular as clockwork, and a regular bleed. So the period stopping, which is a common thing, is not necessarily an indication. Yeah. There are so many other indications. Your mum having headaches. One of my friends messaged me the other day, and my friends don't tend to talk to me about the menopause. If they come to me, I will answer them, but I don't push it down their throats. And one of them came to me and said, Faye, I've got the most crippling headaches. My perimenopause, I'm really struggling. Can we have a chat? And I'm like, yeah, of course we can. So I think it's important for women to know, for their own health, really, that it's not just period stopping or hot flushes or this. It could be a raft of symptoms. Like that gentleman said, he thought it was just because of his health issues or his wife going through it. But actually, he had something else going on also.
Yeah, because men's hormones drop too, right? You know, even though what the interesting thing is that, like you were saying, that workplaces need to know that it happens to trans and non-binary individuals as well. And now, like you just learned today, that it also happens with men. So what that says is that that's 100% of the workforce of people around us. It's just, again, people aren't aware that they're going through it. They may, or maybe they have very minor symptoms and it doesn't really impact them, because that's another thing. There's a variety of different ways that people, you know, have effects of menopause. I've heard women say they went through the entire process and was nothing for them. You know what I mean?
I know. I hate women like that. It's like, yeah, whatever. Move along. Bye.
Yeah, so it's just really interesting too that there's, again, like this, everybody wants to disconnect. I had a friend recently say, you know, to me that he thought that his dad might be going through andropause and that his mom actually had brought it up to him. I was actually happy, number one, that because I was like, oh, I'm glad that your mom even knows what it is, you know what I mean? So that, and that she's able to, you know, say, but the dad, I'm not in menopause, I don't want to, and that's the thing, men's ego, men's, you know, machismo, my testosterone is dropping? Absolutely not. I'm a man. You know what I mean? But that's the mentality. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of men, like the number is 40% of men over 45 have andropause. I 1000% believe that number is higher because of the fact that there are men that, number one, are not educated about it, don't know. Number two, that refuse to admit that they have an issue, right? You know, and then there's people that may just have very minor symptoms because the transition, like women have 3 stages of menopause: perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. And like you're saying, a lot of people think of menopause. I always say that the thing that's confusing about menopause is that
the perimenopause and the menopause.
Yeah, is that it's 3 stages.
I didn't know about perimenopause.
Right. And so, and the interesting thing too is that most of the symptoms of menopause happen during perimenopause, right? You know,
I kept going, I'm going through the menopause, I'm going through the menopause. And then somebody threw in perimenopause and I went, what the hell is that? And then to find out, how long are you in menopause for? 1 day.
Exactly. The actual menopause itself is 1 day, but the perimenopause that leads up. So what I try to do when I educate people and tell them is that, you know, I first educate them on the 3 phases. And then I say, as we talk, when you hear me say menopause, I'm talking about all 3. You know what I mean? So don't just think of it as that one thing, because number one, I think that can be very confusing for some people because they don't understand. So you just have that's why I think it's so important, because a lot of the women that are doing the menopause education and stuff now they're focusing on breaking it up.
Yeah, and you have to.
But what they're doing is they're focusing on perimenopause and then they say menopause stop. No one's focusing on the postmenopause.
Postmenopause.
And postmenopause comes with a lot of symptoms itself. Postmenopause can lead to heart disease, osteoporosis. And that's
and
why
stuff.
it's important that when you're going through menopause, which I've seen you on Instagram, by the way, when you're going through menopause, that you actually also do things to improve your health, because it all works together. You can't just get on HRT and think that's it.
No.
HRT, have a good diet, exercise regularly, live a healthy lifestyle, because everything works synergistically together.
Yes, 100%. When I started doing my research, now I'm one of those girls, like many actually like many people, that will be gung-ho. I need to get fit. I'm going to sign up to the gym. Sign up to the gym. 2 months in, yeah. And then I pay for the rest of the year and I don't step foot in the place. That was me, 20s and my 30s. My 40s, kind of. So then I got to starting my perimenopause, reading up on it, like you need to build your bone density, exercise is important. And I always knew exercise was important for me mentally. So that was another plus for me. And then I just happened to find a weight training studio. And I was like, okay, full disclosure, followed them on Instagram for 6 months before I plucked up the courage to walk in there and sign up. But I found somewhere that didn't make me feel old, didn't make me feel like, oh my God, you're so overweight. Oh my God, you need so much work doing and stuff. And I was able to go in there and be myself. And I actually enjoy it. And I do think there's a thing for people as they get older and they make choices, whether that to be to study or whatever, they give more to it because they're old when they really want it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for me, exercise played a really, really big part in helping me deal with the menopause. It really did.
Yeah. And I think it's important too for people to know and understand that, because I hear so many people say, I hate to exercise. I'm like, do you know how many various ways there are to move your body? You can't hate everything. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's something out there for you. You just have to find what works for you. And I think people get so caught up in the gym part of it. Like, I haven't worked out in the gym since COVID. Like, after I shut my studio down, I have a little space in my area here that I do my workouts in. You can go out to a park. Like, you don't have to, or I like that you have a trainer too, which I think is a very important thing, especially for those of us over 40, because one of the biggest issues that I see when I see people doing things online, and I see all these people, is they're doing things from a place of what I call ego instead of a place of health. Like,
yes,
there is no reason for a 50-year-old man to be doing box jumps. Like, what is the purpose of a box jump? What is the purpose of it? If you're not an athlete, why are you doing box jump?
That?
Because if you fall, your 50-year-old knees are going to be jacked up.
It's going to tell you.
Yeah, your back is good. And every single person because when I had my studio, it was dedicated to over 40. So that was my studio. And going back to the men and the machismo, every man that came to my studio, I also had a rule that I never had any more than 25-pound weights, because I think that people overuse weights. And I think that if you know how to use weights correctly, I could work out with 5-pound weights today and have a great workout, because I know how to do it correctly. So I would get the men telling me, oh, you need heavier weights. They couldn't get through a 30-minute class with the weights they had, with what I was giving them. But you know what they would do? They would strain and they would push. Every single man that came to my gym had a knee problem, a back problem, or a shoulder problem that they got from working out at the gym. Right? So it's like, because you're doing too much. Your body is, your 50-year-old muscles shouldn't be lifting the same weights that your 25-year-old muscles did, right? And so many people want to keep doing what they did. And I'm like,
they won't listen.
Different. Yeah. And it's like, it's that was another thing that when I transitioned out of coaching, I'm like, because there's this push and pull with people, because I think that, again, the internet has done this, I believe, is that people just get this idea that I can do it myself. I can do it myself. And some
No, you
people
need.
can, but health and fitness is a science. You know, exercise is a science. Like we go to school and get training for it because there's things that we learn to put those things in place. And right now, unfortunately, in most of the states in the US, you can become a personal trainer without any certification. As long as somebody's willing to pay you, you can be a personal trainer.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That's
So a lot, I see so many, there's so many like people, Instagram people who are like millionaires now from the workouts that they do online. And every time I watch a workout, I'm like, oh my God, that's going to hurt somebody's back. Oh my God, that's good. Because they're doing stuff that worked for them and their body, and they're selling it to everybody
no,
without
but that
knowing what it is.
no, and I think you're right. I have been lucky because the studio I go to, they very much are aware that I'm older. I have bad knee. I had surgery actually at the beginning of this year, which took me out for nearly 6 months. And they coax me. They know what will work for me. They adapt the exercises. And I have to say, for anybody out here that is going to listen to this interview or this conversation that we're having, find something that works for you. And honestly, the sense of achievement and pride you will get from mastering that thing is like no other. I've known women in their 40s that have taken up skateboarding.
Yeah,
Nah, we're not
too,
doing that.
what's really important too is don't be hard on yourself, because I think
No.
a lot of people go in. I used to have people come to the first time to my gym or to my studio, and they would join a class, and because they couldn't keep up or something, and I'm like, but you have to
Disheartened.
realize, yeah, and I'm like, but these people have been coming to my class for 9 years. They're supposed to be at this level, right? You know what I mean? I mean, so you're supposed to be where you are, because you're, first of all, you're new to my training style, right? You're
Yes.
new to this environment, so you just have to get used to it. So I had to do a lot of like you said, coaxing and letting people know in the right place. You know, we're here to support you. And luckily, my people have been with me so long that they would be supportive of the new person too.
You need to do
welcome. That. Yeah. So that you just have to find your tribe and your place, and then you'll be fine. But don't think that there's nothing out there for you. There's something out there for everyone. You just have to find it, and you have to be diligent about it, and know that once you get there, like you said, you're going to be so happy with the achievement and how much you feel better.
It's like, I mean, this is your trade, you know yourself. But honestly, like, so 2 things. One, when I started weight training, I said to my coach, he went, so what do you want to get out of this? And I said, well, I need to get fit. I'm going through the menopause, and I need to build up my bone density. And I said, I want arms like Michelle Obama. And he looked at me, because not many people know.
No, wait. I have to say that again. Every woman that came to my studio for the first time would say that. Every single woman wanted Michelle Obama arms. That is so funny. That's like the standard. I wonder if Michelle knows that. Michelle, your arms are the gold standard.
Oh, trust me, because like I'd say to some people, I want arms like Michelle Obama, and they'd go, what? And I went, Google it. Right. And then if you put in Michelle Obama's arms, oh, a holy it's renowned. It's out there. It's definitely out there. And for me, like this last week, it was one of the things I've wanted to master is pull-ups, like holding on and pulling up my own body weight. Like, I'm so far off doing it, but I'm making steps to get there, and it is a sense of achievement in itself. Kind of switching a bit, one thing that came to me earlier and I wanted to mention in terms of companies and raising awareness and companies supporting their staff. In the UK, and I don't know how it works in the US, but in the UK, in the last couple of months, a well-known insurance company has paid out £64,000 to a member of staff because they were discriminated against because of the menopause. Yeah, how they were treated and such. In the UK, it's not recognised as law as a characteristic to discriminate against. The menopause isn't, but because of the way we're structured and because of the way she was treated by her employers, the court upheld it, and they had to pay out £64,000. So I think that is a big warning sign for many companies globally,
Yeah,
not
well,
just UK
actually,
or
yes,
US.
actually, I want to say it was 2 years ago. Actually, here in the United States, a woman she actually got a settlement. It didn't go all the way to court, but she did file a suit, and it's an undisclosed settlement account. But she won because she actually had a flooding event at work, and they terminated her because and for those of you that don't know, flooding is when someone has a huge rush of their period that is just like uncontrollable.
Yeah.
And that is one of the huge signs, symptoms in perimenopause, that perimenopause phase. And so she was terminated for that. And she filed a suit and ended up getting a settlement. And that's here in the US. And there's no laws for it here either. But I think they said it was under discrimination and something else was what they were going for in the initial lawsuit. But I guess the company didn't want to take it that far, so they settled out of court. So yeah, like you said, it is a big wake-up call. And I think that the more people become aware of the actual impact that it has on all these different areas, they'll see that, it is number one, something that should eventually become into legislation, because it is a natural process that is not controllable. It's going to happen. You know what I mean? So, and the thing is, the resources, the solutions, and the support is so easy to supply if you just supply it.
And it outweighs the negative of the staff member taking time off or not performing in their job properly because they're not getting that support. And that support doesn't have to cost you loads of money.
Yeah, it does. And again, do you know how many, even in the UK, a lot of the studies that I follow are from the UK, because again, you guys are so way ahead of us. But
which scares me because I feel we're so far behind.
Oh no, you guys are so, like, literally, like, I was looking at some of the things that, like, there's been so much going on in the UK for like the past 5 years about menopause and the support, like, that we're just now starting to do that you guys did 5 years ago. Like having like 4 different celebrities talk about it at the same time on TV is huge here. Like, because no one was talking about it at all. Yeah, and I think the doctor you were talking about, remember I told you that there's one doctor that's on all of the different shows, the black doctor, is probably her because she's been around for a long. I can't think of her name right now, but she was on Oprah's show, and then she's been on Today's show, but she's like the go-to menopause doctor here in the United States. And she's making a lot of strides with educating on HRT and stuff like that as well. Great. But again, and I think it's important because there are women that are past that stage that do need to know about the support, right? But again, we need the awareness. You got to be aware before you can provide support. Because you got to know what you're providing support for, who needs it, why they need it, the different ways you can provide it, and all that stuff. Now, I did want to touch back because you had mentioned that at your previous job, you were there for 5 years and hadn't spoken to anyone. Now, after that change and you moved on to your new job, how had anything changed as far as the type of support, or if you felt more comfortable being more open about it?
I think I feel more comfortable being open about it. And since that job, I've had, because COVID hit, so I had to move around a little bit. I'm on my 3rd job, and I've been in this job a year. So the other 2 jobs, I didn't hide it. I didn't go, oh, I'm going for the menopause, I'm doing this. I just didn't hide it, and I just mentioned it in conversation. Now, this job I'm in currently, they know all about it. As you've seen, I've got an Instagram which is open to the public. There's a few of the younger people I work with, they follow me on that. My boss follows me on it and stuff. And yeah, I'm just more open about it, and I will talk about it. And I think it's quite interesting. I am open about it. I don't hide it. But this company is starting to look into it, but each of them had no menopause policy, nothing.
Yeah.
Even like I kind of say, I'm going for the menopause and stuff. And it's like, okay, cool, fine, let's move along. But none of them, this one does have one, slightly outdated, and I know they're looking to update it. And they are looking to address it and do talks and stuff like that. But I think we still have a long way to go for companies.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They are, I think, unless there's somebody within the company, within HR or management, that has a direct correlation, whether it be their wife, their partner, or have read things about it, it's way down on their list. It's
Well,
way down on their list.
well, my approach to that, which is why I come to it from a different approach, is that when I started researching more about menopause, and then when I started working with the Menopause Experts Group, which is located in the UK, I started learning more about the menopause in the workplace. And that's when I started talking to HR directors, talking to DEI directors. And what all of them said was that they didn't have leadership buy-in. So for me was, okay, if leadership isn't buying in, it's because they don't understand how it impacts them and they don't know how it impacts their workplace. So that's when I started looking into, okay, so what is the social and economic impact of menopause? And that's where I started getting the research and the numbers and the $150 billion in productivity lost every year because of menopause, or that $1.8 billion of lost work time because of absenteeism happened. So that's why they should care.
And then they listen.
And because it comes down to their bottom line. And then also the research that comes out. And this is why I asked you about your new workplaces, because a lot of the research that has come out now says that just by being allowed to openly express it at work, that women's symptoms improve.
They do, because you don't feel so stressed. I know for a fact, like trying to hide it and trying to perform when I've got brain fog and stuff, and nobody knowing, and having to put up the pretense of like, oh yeah, I'm so switched on. Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong here. Like, it's added pressure and stress. So I totally believe being able to just go, yeah, I'm having a hot flash, or being able to whip out a fan and fan yourself and not feel embarrassed and stuff. Yeah, it makes such a difference. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. And another thing I saw, they did this interview of a company and they were asking the coworkers, and another statistic came out that said that when a woman was having a hot flash, that if someone asked her if she was okay and she kind of, yeah, I'm fine, they actually looked down on her. But when she openly said, I'm having a hot flash, they actually respected her more and were more supportive. So just because, awareness and knowledge, right? Because, and if you think about it, if you see someone is distraught and then you ask them and then they say they're not distraught, of course you're going to be like, I see you, there's something going on. You know what I mean? And so there's this back of your head thing, whereas that, are you okay? Oh yeah, I'm just having a hot flash. You need anything? No, I'm good. I have some water, whatever it is. If you think that's just a different response, because again, you normalize it. Yeah, I'm having a hot flash, and that's the thing. We have to normalize the conversation. That's why I call what I'm doing right now, I'm on a menopause movement. Like, I'm trying to make this
I love that menopause movement.
So that, again, we just have to be more aware,
normalize it. You have to.
Yeah. So we have been talking and talking. I love it. Now, just so you know, I was originally planning on making this a 30-minute call, but but I love that we got all this out, because clearly we needed to say what we needed to say and share. So before we log out, is there anything that you feel that you wanted to say that you didn't get a chance to say, or any last words you want to leave our audience with?
I would say, don't be scared, because the number one thing I get from younger people, younger women, are going, is it that bad? I'm scared. And I'm like, don't be scared, because there is a solution out there for you. If you decide to go the holistic natural route, there's so many different vitamins, looking at your gut health. I myself developed sensitive skin, so I had to change my wardrobe, only wear cotton and natural fibers, because it's easier on the skin to breathe and stuff like that. Don't be scared and don't ignore it. Address it and live your best life. Because the mantra I have in my head, which I've been saying a lot this year, is tomorrow is not guaranteed.
Right. That's true. Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing is that fear comes from not being aware. So if you're younger, become more aware, get more educated about it. That way, you know what to expect. If you know what
Exactly.
to expect, then there's less fear because you know what's coming, you know how to address it, you can put things in place. So,
And you can deal with it.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much, Faye, for coming on and sharing your story with us. I am absolutely certain that it will help someone, and hopefully someone will be able to really understand that this whole stigma and everything around menopause is not like exactly. I love that. It's so like number one, outdated, incorrect, and it is like, again, I'm going to say it again, it is so much more than just a woman's health issue. And once we all get to that point and understand that, again, there'll be more understanding, more sympathy, more empathy, more support, more resources. And that's what all of us need, because again, men need to be educated about this as well as women. I even had a client tell me the other day that her teenage daughter said something about her menopause that hurt her feelings. So again, educating the children as well, like, because again, like you were saying, if a woman is going through issues at home, it's going to affect the house.
Whole
Not just going to
family
affect her, it's going to affect exactly the entire household. So yes,
has to be addressed. I've
exactly.
loved this conversation with you. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so happy you were able to make it and to share your story. And if anyone wants to get in contact with you or follow your I think it's called 9 to 5 Menopause, correct?
Yeah, 9 to 5 Menopause. And quick fact, I got the name after hearing Dolly Parton on the radio working 9 to 5. And I went, that's it. The working lady going through the menopause. 9 to 5 Menopause.
Exactly.
That is what I am.
And how can people find you?
So I'm numerical 9 TO5 Menopause on Instagram, or I have my own website, Faye, FAYREID.com, FayeReid.com.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much, Faye. And thank you all for watching. Until next time, please be safe and be well.